Awesome. So I am Vaibhav Chopra. I'm a software engineer by profession. I go by the name of Sudo Makes on LinkedIn, Twitter, and all those handles. And I just moved to Bangalore this year, 2023, 6 months back from Delhi, right? So today I'll be talking about control flow based rendering. I know all of you must be wondering what the heck does that mean. And I'm sure within 10 minutes we will all be, on the same page about what it means. So I guess let's get started. So before I bore you, here's a little bit of information about me. I work at Microsoft, and previously I was working in the tech division of a insurance broking company called Prisha Policy, and that is where most of my web development experience stems from. I help build applications which are today managing about 100 crore of premium insurance premium, and I'm also a LinkedIn top voice where I basically give my 2 cents on things like software engineering, web development, things which really pique my passion and help other people on their journey, right? And I also like to call myself an imposter web developer. And why do I call myself that? It's because I'm not somebody, who has been doing front end for very long, or, is somebody who does just front end. I don't have that sort of an attention span. So I keep, flirting between Azure technologies, Microsoft technologies, then some React, then some Docker, and I'm really a Linux, fanboy. So, and I also do a little bit of a lead code. I know that puts me in the wrong room, among you people. But that's who I am. I'm by no means a web development purist, right? So, but that causes a bit of an issue for me because every time, I'm doing something for 3 or 4 months, I come back to web development, I end up looking like this guy, right? Because every time I come back to web dev, I am incredibly overwhelmed. I go, I learned SPAs, then I go learn Linux. I come back, all of you have moved on to SSR. What the heck, right? And then I learn SSR and I come back. Now, then there is a talk about hydration is pure overhead. Come on. You know, I learned I learned about okay JavaScript, then I learned TypeScript, right? That is one choice, right? But then there is another fork in the road that I have to pick a framework. There is four options, right? Then there are also meta frameworks on top of these, right? And then there are styling libraries, right? There is BlueStack, there is Material UI, there is Tailwind, there is what is this? I forgot. It's Radix, I think, but I'm not sure, right? And then there are meta frameworks, Astro, Next, and every new next version is like a new framework altogether. So, and then they've changed the underlying framework altogether, the runtime. Every time I come back, and like every 6 months I feel illiterate again. Everything that I know has no use, and I'm sure some of you at least could relate. Can I have a show of hands? Oh, I thought you all were, you all were gonna oppose me, but I think I have a lot of sympathies in this group. But I got frustrated with all of this, right, over time, where I thought there must be a simpler way, you know. And so I made a framework of my own. It's called Backroad, and the reason why I called it Backroad is because I wanted that in a world of the information highway, the internet, right? The high speed internet and how things move fast. I wanted, a simple, slow road that allows me to, cruise along and build something very simple. If, I just have to build a to do list app or, let's say a simple calculator, why, learn about all these things? If there is something simpler, why not use that? And, what if I have no front end development knowledge at all and I want to, build something for the public? So the reason for making Backroad is pretty simple. I was tired of analysis paralysis. What I mean by that is that sometimes you are faced with so many choices that you kind of get lost and lose your vision because nobody generally codes for fun, like in the sense that they're just building apps for the sake of it. There is often an underlying business need or an idea that you had. Imagine you have a problem of, let's say, making something like an LLM, like a chat GPT. You probably want to invest more time in figuring out those training and modeling instead of having to think about the front end framework, right? If something can be done simply, why not do it? uh, the reason why I got idea for Backroad is that another term for analysis paralysis could be over intellectualization, where you're trying to instead of thinking about the core problem, you are kind of getting bogged down with these other ancillary decisions, right? And just like my therapist said last week, web of over intellectualization is not good for you, right? So another thing to keep in mind is that your $1 billion unicorn to-do list app probably doesn't need SSR and hydration, zero hydration on day one. You should better like build a simple app and then get market validation and find a product market fit, and then you can optimize, right? Hopefully, if you use Backroad, you'll be able to hit the market with the first prototype in like 30 minutes, right? So that's the goal. But how do I do this? Just script it, just script it. Now you're probably asking, what does that mean? What do you mean by just script it? Then my follow-up is, then you need to understand what is control flow. So how many of you know at least what is control flow, or at least they think they know what is control flow? So I think I only see one hand or two hands. What it basically means is it's the for loops, the while loops, and the if statements and the break statements. All of that parts of the control flow. It's basically manipulating how expressions are getting executed, right? The ordering of the statements. The bet that I'm trying to make is just using that, you can build a whole front end and back end, a full stack application. Now, how do you do that? So now you'll see some backroad code for the first time. It might get some time to get used to. If somebody has used Streamlit or Gradio, they might find this very similar. These are all Python ecosystem tools. So you just write this JavaScript code, Node.js code, where if you just say backroad.toggle, it gives you a toggle on the screen, right? Whatever you pass in the label comes here, and by default it has a value of true. So just by saying br.toggle, you get a toggle on your front end in your browser, but obviously there is an underlying value to that toggle, right? It's either true or false. So when you do br.toggle, you don't get the JSX nodes or the front end DOM nodes. You get the actual value. So there is no procedure call that is required. There is no API. Your front end and back end are tightly coupled. So your end user gets a GUI while you get the value. And if, let's say, the dog person variable, this is a Boolean now. If it is true, you can write some text and then you can draw an image. And should the dog person value be false, it will render a different image and a different text, and you can do anything else also, right? You can also hit, let's say, an API, and let's say that gives you a list of things. You can then do a for each or a map and do br.write, you'll have n number of entries. So that is the core concept behind Backroad, right? I hope everybody is with me so far, right? It's a very simple thing. And what you ask, okay, Vaibhav, what if I hit dog person toggle here? What will happen? It will get reset to false. Okay, it will get set to false. What I say is, no need to worry about virtual nodes, no need to worry about DOM. I will always run the script from top to bottom. Again, top to bottom, top to bottom. Every time you mutate state, I'll run it from top to bottom. And it will re-render, it will reset the canvas of sorts. Obviously, it does some partial replacement if it needs to, and then give you the new UI. Very simple. Always run from top to bottom. For loop is there, it will render n items. If statement is there, it will only render one of the two branches. Very simple, right? But that is not where it ends. There are a lot of frameworks, a lot of components which you can use. You can say br.file upload, and we have already formidable, multer, and all of these things figured out for you. And you will get that accessible via this files variable. So you can read it, right? Then there is br.chat messages. Any people who are into generative AI, right? LLMs and these trainers, you can build this GUI in 2 minutes and link your Node.js SDK to this tool, right? Then you have color pickers, you can have JSON visualizers, and you can have radio buttons, and all of it gives you like full type safety, and you can access and render whatever you want. So it's not just one or two input. There is a whole, I would say, library of components at play here. But now let me show you a small demo, and you will be amazed to see how much work can be done in just 20 lines of code. Can you hold the mic? Thank you so much. So what you'll see is there is this repo called try backroad. So if you want to access this, I'll zoom in. You can see me in the back, right? This code, right? So what you can see is I can do npx dgit sudo makes try backroad. Okay. And this will give you the repo. And then you just have to do an npm install and an npm run dev, and you should be good to go. I've already done that. So while what I'll do is I'll just do npm run dev. Okay. So what this will do, it will spin up a server in localhost 3333, right? And I have it running here. And this is a sample backroad app, which has a sidebar, 3 pages, and this home page. Okay. Now the core of the framework is just this run function. I'll clear this up. Just this run function, whatever you run, put inside this is your whole app. I can just say br.write and say hello from home page. And it will, I can rerun it, and now it will say hello from home page. And this also supports markdown, by the way, right? So you can render markdown. But let's say I want to not be an SPA and have multiple pages. I can just do const page2 and do br.page, and give the path. So now if I save this and say page2.write, so instead of routing to the home page, it will give me my compound interest calculator. So now what I'll have to do is I'll do page 2, and now I have something different rendered, right? Isn't that crazy, right? So you now have 2 pages. Now let's say you'll be like, Vaibhav, no app is that simple. Let's say, what if I want to have, let's say, 2 columns? You know how we have in Bootstrap and Tailwind. Look at this. I'll say const call1, call2, and give me br.columns. I will not say br.columns. I'll say page2.columns. And now I have 2 columns which I have destructured just like a JavaScript object. And now I can give further commands to render in this SDK. So what I'll do is call1.write hello from column 1, and call2.write hello from column 2. And that's it. Okay. Now, what if I want to take some inputs, you ask? Now I'll do a simple compound interest calculation where I say call1.number input, give me the principal amount. Then I'll say const r, which is the rate of interest. And then I say time, which is const t, call1.radio. And I have 3 options: 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years, right? Could be anything that you want. And I just do save, alt tab, and now I have a full-fledged UI in just 10 lines of code, right? Now let's say, I know I kind of flunked maths in one of the grades, but I think the formula for amount is P into 1 plus R upon 100. I won't bore you. And %, works even if you have characters. So now I have the amount with me. Now let's move to call2 and print this output. Final output is amount.toFixed. And let's say I double the principal amount. I think it will get doubled. And it's all tied down with WebSockets. So you don't have to make the REST APIs to talk to the front end and the back end, right? So, but that's not where it ends. Now, let's say I want to build a chart around it. There is also a pie function, which kind of takes this, and I can quickly visualize, give my background colors. This is all based on Chart.js too, by the way. So if anything that works in Chart.js and, on those famous libraries, it will work here. Let's say I make this 20. So my intuition says if I, quadruple the time period, then the amount will be much higher than the principal, right? And see, and it's all real time, all very fast, all built using WebSockets, correct? So this was the quick demo. Now coming back to the what's next. So how does this all work? Thank you, Kiran. Thank you so much. Shout out to Kiran. So this is the diagram, architecture diagram of how it works. So, whatever you put inside the run function is your logic, but there is a whole backroad engine behind it, which has these containers and components. The number inputs and these radio buttons are called components, but anything in which you can put more components is a container. Any page, any accordion, any column, right? So that is the 2 things. Behind it, there are these 4 musketeers. State storage, which stores, every time you re-render, the value is still there, right? You change only one value, but you need the other 3 or 4 values which were there. So that's the state storage. Then you have a container component tree, because obviously, there is a tree hierarchy, and how backroad does the diffing of what to re-render, what to, take off the DOM and things like that. React obviously helps a lot in this. Then you have node manager. So, that BR variable, that page2 variable, these are called node managers, because using these variables, you can do other things like add additional components, change values. And then there is a render queue. So we try to batch the GUI call. So if you try to render 3 components very quickly, I'll only send the request once a millisecond or, once a second. I'm not exactly sure of what the value is. And it is all tied down using WebSockets. So whatever command you give here is isolated. So every tab is a separate backroad session. So every session has its own values, right? You could have 2 different tabs. In one, you say principal is 10,000. In another, you say it is 30,000, right? So that's how the architecture works. And this was the code, right? And that's all you require to build a compound interest calculator. You did not know any front end knowledge. I think the GUI looks good enough, right? Obviously, maybe we can change this in the future, but this is V1. There is a roadmap though, and we are trying to make this more powerful. Imagine adding authentication to backroad. Let's say you want to firewall or paywall certain parts of your app. Imagine how I did the br.page call. You just pass a variable to it called auth true, and you have a home page that is not authenticated, but every other page requires you to be authenticated, so you can sort of add authentication. How simple would that be, right? And then there is things like one click deploy. You just say backroad deploy, you get a simple serverless sort of an application. And then there are SEO improvements. So currently the front end is rendered using React, but I am having certain issues with making WebSockets work nicely with the Google crawler bot. So these sort of updates are coming on the way. So this was Backroad. It's a framework that I built 2 months back. I studied the React code base, the Streamlit code base, and was able to get it going in a month or so. But I would really appreciate your contributions, your feedback. Feel free to file a GitHub issue. By the way, there is a link here. If you scan it, it's a Microsoft form. You can fill it, and there are 2 fields at the bottom where you can give your GitHub username. So if you go and star Backroad and give your username to me, I'll pick one of you randomly and give you 1,000 rupees Amazon gift card for supporting Backroad. Just a shameless plug there. So this is the link to the documentation and the project. Do extend your support, and this is my LinkedIn. I would love to connect with all of you and chat more there. So any questions, any feedback? Looking forward to it. Thank you so much.